We are going to take you on a flight overlooking the Blanchard project and its surrounding area. I think you'll be amused and very surprised at the, what would you call it, the amount of undisturbed,
Yes, undeveloped land.
undeveloped land
Yeah.
in the area.
About 1,600 acres altogether that run along Branch Brook. Deering Pond is the source of the brook, or the river. And we own 200 acres or so around the pond, which is kind of interesting because the Sanford Rail Trail connects now two of our projects, or project areas. So sit back and enjoy the flight.
The Sanford Springvale Mountain Way Land Trust is excited to announce that the Blanchard project is being launched in an effort to preserve and share with everybody this special 100-acre area nestled within 2.5 miles of undeveloped forest. It contains about 2.5 miles of trails. A funding drive has begun to help secure this as an environmental reserve for all to visit, and many varied uses will be promoted. Educational projects for schools, endangered and threatened species restoration, biodiversity enhancement, and of course, it's for fun. We might even build an environmental educational center for holding kid-friendly, nature-based movies and birdhouse and bat building workshops, and possibly invite some local and regional wildlife experts to host wildlife demonstrations. The Blanchard project in Springvale is located about 1.5 miles off Hanson's Ridge Road, about 1/2 mile from Lebanon, and only 3.5 miles from Springvale Square. Access is also available from a section of the Sanford Springvale Rail Trail, about 200 feet west of Carpenter's Bridge. The rail trail forms the 1/2 mile long southern boundary of the Blanchard project. A Facebook page called The Blanchard Project has a map of this area showing many trails, a collection of photos taken in the area, and many trail pictorial albums. A click on the Files tab on the Facebook page will take you to some fun pages describing the many plants, animals, and unique areas that can be seen in this area. Some of you may have seen and read parts of the Blanchard Project being described as the area on some Sanford-related Facebook pages. After enjoying this introductory video produced by WSSR, please feel free to visit the Blanchard Project and experience some of the beauty that many believe is very worthy of your support. The critters that call the Blanchard Project home will thank you with their songs, chirpings, and beauty when you come for a visit.
The entrance trail is about 1.25 miles down Blanchard Road from Hanson's Ridge Road on the left. There's a wide opening in the stone wall just after a curve in the road. Downhill from the opening, just over the far stone wall, is the source of a red maple sensitive fern, forested wetland about which we'll talk later. For now, enjoy the pleasant 1/3 mile walk down the entrance trail, which the Trust plans to upgrade to an ADA accessible trail. Sturdy wheelchair could maybe do the walk as it is now. A recent timber harvest resulted in a lot of new lush growth of oak, maple, blackberries, and ferns. A few bull pines were left for reseeding. Notice the many glacial erratics peppered throughout the area, and this rock tree that made friends with one of them, I guess this is the rock maple, is serious about its name. Generations ago, this was a pasture and meadowland used for grazing the local farmers' cattle. This is somewhat delicate soil. Bedrock is close to the surface. The soil is thin. Meadowland restoration here is a great project, feeding the pollinators that provide us with a beautiful place for wildflower, butterfly, and bird watching. We're coming now to the entrance of the wood yard.
Here we see the wood yard, an area the loggers used during timber harvesting operations. A tree harvester worked the yards, cutting and piling trees into small piles, and the skidders grappled the trees and delivered them to the wood yard. The machines used at this yard included a delimber, which stripped the trees of their branches, cut them to proper length, and with the skidders sorted the logs according to wood species, quality, and length. Stationed next to the delimber was a chipper that processed the lower quality trees, tops, and branches into chips and blew them into large enclosed trailers, which were then delivered to a facility where they were used as fuel to power electrical generators. I'm told that the trees were turned into electricity in about a day. Some logs were delivered to various sawmills for lumber and veneer processing. Other logs were delivered to folks for firewood for use in their wood-burning stoves. The thick layer of small branches left behind from woodyard operations will eventually decompose and feed the soil, allowing for rich emerging growth and the basis of a food chain which will feed and house many insects, amphibians, birds, and small animals. These little guys will feed bigger guys, the spiders, fox, raccoon, raven, hawks, and coyotes. Such carefully planned and executed timber operations are a part of any working forest and are critical in creating new habitats for many struggling wildlife species. Properly harvested areas allow for the growth of succulent new food sources while protecting valuable wetlands and maintaining wildlife corridors within which foraging critters can live and travel. The Mousamway Land Trust is beginning to restore this area back to a meadowland habitat where butterflies, bees, and brush-nesting birds once thrived and will be welcomed back. From the woodyard, 2 other trails begin, the Center Trail and the Branch Stream Fen Trail. A gentle climb up a sandy knoll opens a view to the beginnings of 2 types of forested wetlands, a black ash wetland to the left and a red maple sensitive fern to the right. Wetlands have been called the most productive ecosystems on Earth, and for good reasons. These incredibly diverse, biologically rich areas provide many benefits to their surrounding habitat. The constant presence of water creates a habitat that supports uniquely adapted soils, plants, and amphibians. Moving slowly through a large area, the waters gradually form a rare and valuable wetland soil, which trap pollution-laden sediment. The microorganisms in these saturated soils then eat these pollutants, removing them from the ecosystem. Red tide blooms, which we've all heard about, sometimes are caused by high fertilizer use, and that's one of the pollution-caused events that wetlands help to reduce. They also slow water flow and soak it up for long periods of time, serving to control flooding and reducing erosion. All these unique conditions form the basis of a food chain of the surrounding habitat, and they do so year-round. The importance of these valuable wetlands is the subject of many completed and ongoing studies, and preservation efforts are increasing in urgency as these studies are showing the positive ecological impact upon the surrounding environment and how those impacts relate to the betterment of the human condition. Walking towards the Fen Outlook area, an excellent view of the red maple sensitive fern wetland illustrates the successive evolving growth of this wetland. The life cycle of the softwoods are ending, and the red maple trees, better able to withstand a wetter soil, is succeeding. The understory is rich in ferns and mosses with young hardwood shoots that provide many overwintering animals a valuable food source. In spring, the many early blooms and insects living here feed the birds and butterflies returning from their long migrations. It's a food source heavily relied upon for their survival. The early activities of some amphibians offer a protein-rich food source for turkeys, fox, raccoons, and other animals. The Fen Outlook area, perched on top of a sandy, glacially deposited till, offers a generous view of the Branch Stream Fen. The distant tree line borders Branch Stream. Interestingly, the stream now flows a different path created by the railroad builders over 150 years ago to appease the local farmers of the time, which we spoke about earlier.
The Sanford-Springdale Rail Trail is a 6-mile section of railroad built in the late 1800s. The first part of the railroad from Portland to Springdale was in operation by 1871. In May of 1871, they started building from Springdale Station over on Pleasant Street west to Rochester. There were approximately 100 men working in the spring of 1871. They laid rails and ties all the way to Rochester so that the line was open by July 4th. They celebrated with a 4th of July train. It's now a city-owned linear park, 99 feet wide, forms the southern boundary of the Blanchard project. And about a half a mile of this bed is along the border of our land. The Branch River Fen is to the right, and rolling hills and emergent wetlands are to the left. Geese have been summering on the river out back of the fen for a while, and beaver might be here. Well, we see signs of the beaver, so they're probably interested in repopulating. Moose, we've seen signs of moose, and egrets have been seen here. Turtles use the gravel surface of the rail trail because it's a good egg-laying site. Painted turtles are subject of a very long-term Canadian study which estimates that these creatures can live to be at least 300 years old. Lady slippers have all been found along the trail, and humans have found things to do here too. To the left, hugging the rail trail, is an emergent wetland. Beavers have historically used this as a highway between their lodges near Carpenter's Bridge and the Branch Stream Fens habitat, gnawing away at many sweet aspens, oaks, and maples. We've now walked about half a mile on the rail trail, and we find the entrance to the center trail. A short trip up center trail takes us to a very pretty perennial stream crossing that gets interesting in the early spring snowmelts, flowing slowly as it helps the Branch River flood the fen area. This perennial stream is formed by the waters of both the red maple sensitive fern swamp and the black ash forested wetland that we visited earlier. To the right, near Carpenter's Bridge, is where beavers historically have had lodges, created a small pond, and could be heard slapping their tails as they announced any passing intruders. Read about these busy guys on our Facebook page.
Often associated with forested wetlands, vernal pools, also called spring pools, are typically shallow depressions that hold water for only part of the year. Described as perennial or ephemeral, vernal pools do not support fish, which would eat a lot of the valuable young eggs and young amphibians. Vernal pools offer unique and essential habitats for the survival of some really cool singing amphibians and rare plants. Many of these plants and animals spend the dry season as eggs, seeds, or cysts, and then grow and reproduce when the ponds are then again filled with water in the spring. In Maine, wood frogs, salamanders, and fairy shrimp must have access to vernal pools in order to survive and reproduce. Some species must return to the exact pool in which they were born to reproduce. Vernal pools form a food chain basis for the surrounding habitat, providing a high-quality food source for many critters. The loss of a vernal pool results in a local extinction event, the loss of a local area's population of some plants and amphibians. This event also causes a significant decline of valuable food for many other local animals, putting them at risk for survival. For many critters coming out of hibernation and for birds returning to Maine to breed, vernal pools provide a spring feast of egg masses and adult amphibians. In short, these springtime pools provide easy, fast food for woodland animals after a long winter with limited food.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed this program, the video tour and drone overflight. And we want to remind you once again that we would appreciate any donations you care to make to help us purchase this land. You can send your donations to Box 736 at the post office here in Sanford, or go visit our website, mousamwaylandtrust.org.